What if the answers to your health struggles aren't in the lab results that your doctor is shrugging off? What if they can't pinpoint the problem because they aren't looking at the whole picture? The truth is, Western medicine is notorious for ignoring the deep connection between mind, body, spirit, and emotions. As a medical intuitive, I use channeling to uncover what's really going on, and I do that when nothing else seems to make sense. In this episode, you're going to discover the science behind channeling, how the brain works. You're also going to learn about spiritual traditions that have been honed for centuries. It's been around a long time. And I'm going to share how I use channeling in my work to help women finally get the answers they've been searching for. Welcome to the Gutsy Chick podcast, where healing is a mission, not a mystery. I'm your host, Amanda Smith, former engineer on NASA projects and programs turned medical intuitive. I'm excited about this episode because it gives you a deeper understanding of how I could go from being an aerospace engineer, mechanical engineer, Tetris player with stuff on Artemis, to medical intuitive. If you've listened to some of my other episodes where I talk about my work, which is a lot of episodes, you know that the way I do my work is a deep understanding of the body. And all the ways that I'm about to tell you how channeling works is also how I do this work. All right. So the science says channeling is an altered state of consciousness. We just shift gears like we're using Wi-Fi at home, and then when we're outside of our home, we have to use satellites. Kind of like that. Neuroscientists have studied what the brain is doing when someone is channeling. And what they discovered is they're moving into a theta or a delta brainwave state. These are the same states you experience when you're dreaming, if you do deep meditation, or hypnosis. Yeah. For me, I use this when I'm doing drum journeying, this version of what science has discovered. I go into a deep meditative state and I actually see what the person I'm meditating for is doing in that moment. And then I play around in this deep meditative state to, I wouldn't call it play, that's probably a bad word, but I'm digging around to find out what's happened in their past, put them in their current situation, and how can we change it, distance body clearing, to give them a better future. And then we play back and forth between those. That's this deep meditation, channeling state. From a psychology perspective, some researchers argue that channeling is simply accessing the subconscious mind. It's like intuition or creative flow on steroids. Others think this is it's the brain's way of pattern recognition, pulling together things you didn't consciously realize you knew. That is something that when I am sitting with my clients happens a lot. I like to call it opening my channel, and I do it to a certain percentage because I'm a math nerd, and allow the information to flow into me. A fabulous example of this is one of my clients has chronic sinusitis. And the last time her and I sat together in a call, I opened my channel and the things that came through, she was going, yes, that makes perfect sense. And it wasn't because I had done a ton of research for her before the call. I wasn't even sure what we were going to be talking about on that call because we've been working together for a year. And what I uncovered opening my channel to allow those connections of disparaging things come together shifted how she saw her situation, shifted how her situation presented itself. Love it. So the spiritual side of things. This is where we're going to talk about a bunch of different people who have channeled from way back. Channeling's been a part of human culture for forever. If you look at religious traditions, or specifically the prophets from the Bible, they're essentially channels. They claimed to bring messages directly from God. In ancient Greece, the oracle Delphi was believed to be channeling Apollo. In indigenous and shamanic practices, channeling often comes through from forms of spirit connection, ancestor wisdom, or messages from the natural world. I get all of those. Sitting in discussion with you right now, I can see outside and watch what's going on and read from nature any wisdom it wants to send my way. When I'm speaking with my clients, sometimes I get to tap into their ancestors and find out from a historical perspective what might be going on for that person. Epigenetics might be presenting itself in that moment for the person. Who in the lineage had that, telling them their story and them going, oh, that explains so much. Understanding shifts our brain into a healing state. It's phenomenal. So whether you're calling this intuition, revelation, prophecy, or subconscious flow, it's all the same human experience. We're tapping into something higher than ourselves and bringing it through into visions and possibly even healing. Yeah. Let's zoom out and look at some of the people throughout history. As you've already heard me bring up Delphi, the oracles of Delphi in Greece. She spoke to kings, warriors, and politicians and changed major decisions around war, politics, and leadership. That's some powerful channeling. People would travel hundreds of miles just to ask her a question. They also believed that she was high as a kite while she was channeling. Could be possible. Not something I practice. In the Middle Ages, we had Hildegard von Bingen. She was a Christian mystic who wrote entire books on vision she claimed came directly from divine sources. She influenced theology, medicine, and music. Again, huge influence. Fast forward to slightly more modern times, we've got the sleeping prophet, Edgar Cayce. This is someone that a couple of people have said, I remind them of his work. I don't sleep while I'm channeling. He did. He'd go into a trance state and then deliver detailed medical readings, diagnosing illnesses, and suggesting remedies that have been proven to work today. Yeah. There's another one similar to him, depending on whether you believe in what his work does or doesn't do, the medical medium. His work, I know several people who have used his recommendations and they've helped them heal. So there's efficacy to his work as well. In the 60s and 70s, this one I didn't know, Jane Roberts became known for the entity Seth. And this produced the Seth materials. Those teachings introduced ideas about creating your own reality, which influenced countless personal development and spiritual teachers. I'm guessing it probably influenced a bunch of people who did The Secret. But then, of course, there's Esther Hicks and Abraham, or Abraham Hicks, depending on what you know about this one. I learned about Abraham Hicks in The Secret and was completely blown away by just the vibe that him were putting into the world. Very, very, very impressive. Nostradamus is another one to bring up, obviously centuries ago, but his predictions continue to play out into recent years. Channeling, wild stuff. So if you don't follow these teachings, it's hard to ignore the impact. They've shaped spiritual movements, healing practices, wars, politics, religion. I mean, and the mind-body connection, which is what I do with my channeling. They all stem from this idea of tuning into something bigger beyond their individual self, and then bring it in to the collective conscious. My journey into channeling has been long. Some of my first experiences hearing voices or seeing things happened when I was unbelievably young. Some of my family members have even questioned whether that's truth, which is unfortunate because it is my reality. But these were little whispers and nudges to send me on the path that I'm now down. I would feel things, see things, hear things when I was young, and I systematically started to turn those off. We call those clairs. Clairvoyance, clairsentience, clairaudience. I turned those off because it was too much for my little brain, my young self, to fully grasp, but I left feeling intact. Clairsentience. And when I was old enough and had a lot more wisdom, I ran into teachers who understood what I was experiencing and wanted to help. One of my first was Cable Jones, who I still communicate with to this day. In fact, had a probably 2-hour-long conversation with him last week. And he was one of the first to show me how to manage the energy that was coming into my sphere, the information that was coming in to my mind, and to start to decipher who it was coming from, where it was coming from, how it was coming in. And being a mechanical and aerospace engineer at this time on the Artemis program, yeah, that wasn't something that I was going to be like, check out what's happening to me. So I kept it under wraps for a very long time. But this is where my channeling skills started to really get honed. They were there, they were messy, and I needed teachers to really guide me. Some of the practices that I started to do had to do with bubbling or shielding. I have a whole podcast episode on bubble work. Go check that out. That was when I was Spirit of an Athlete. I believe it's right around episode 7. That shifted how the information was coming in. I could finally discern whether it was mine or someone else's pain that I was experiencing, whether it was my thought or a channeled thought that was coming through. And that took practice. The next thing that I learned, which is something that I just taught in a workshop, was kinesiology. Applied kinesiology is a way to test yes/no answers. You can also count. And again, a math nerd. So counting was high priority for me to figure out how to do and understand. And now I do it with a snap. Yes and no. 1, 2, 3, it's 2. If that's something that interests you, I have a great recording from the workshop that I taught on September 17th. You are welcome to purchase that from me. Reach out if that intrigues you. Then came meditation. I had a meditation practice up to this point, something I would do while I was breastfeeding or pumping at work. I would go into a deep meditative state. And then I ran into my next teacher, Melissa Seaman, who taught me how to do drum journeying. And that was a game changer. Huge shift. In fact, There's a podcast episode where her and I dive into what is drum journeying? How does drum journeying work? How did it work for me specifically? How does it work for her? And all that good, juicy stuff. Go check that episode out. I believe that's in the 60s, Alyssa Seaman. But when I learned that tool, that's where I got to do those deep distance body clearings that are phenomenal for my clients. It's a game changer for my clients. And then there's the work with my clients. As you've already heard, I open my channel while we're sitting there on a call and allow information to come through, whether that's from their ancestors, from their own spirit guide team, from their higher self that they might not have access to. But then I also teach them how to do the things that I've done in this practice, which is something that I'm teaching at the October retreat, how to body whisper and how to do it for yourself and for others. I've figured out all the patterns, all of the milestones, all of the steps needed to take in order to get there. And I'm teaching that in a 4-day weekend here in Colorado. If that interests you, that link is in the show notes. But yeah, my clients have shifted their reality from being sick with a chronic health condition to having whispers of health conditions that are no longer chronic. And they're just reaching out and saying, "Hey, Amanda, I've got a cold. Can you help me shift that?" And then we work on that. That's the goal, people. That, when it comes to your health, is the ultimate goal. Let's get you out of the screams and into the whispers. You've probably heard a bit of the woo coming up here. I mentioned spirit guides. I mentioned speaking with ancestors. Yeah, that's talking to the dead. Like, there is definitely a bit of woo in channeling, and you're bridging the worlds when you're a channel. You're bridging the here and now with the past, which might look like ancestors, or it might just look like your lived past. I'm bridging those worlds to make your world a better place. That's my goal. There are soul contracts. When a certain person shows up in my world and they're like, "Yeah, I think I'm supposed to be working with you," right then and there, I am asking the question, do we have a soul contract? And is it time for that to be fulfilled? Time is an interesting thing from the other side, but I can usually answer that through patterns that I recognize while I'm in a channeled state to answer that very question. Is it time to fulfill this spiritual contract, this soul contract? Speaking with guides isn't like speaking with your ancestors. Speaking with guides is like communicating with your higher self, or with, some people call that God. Speaking to a team of people who have been with you from the get-go, that, and people is a loose term. Some of my clients have guides that look like just a line that speaks. Some have dragons that are their guides. I have Archangel Michael, who I call Mikey. That's on another episode. But you have a set of guides that are always with you and are nudging you in the direction that you're supposed to be going. Again, you don't have to buy in and believe all of that woo. Just recognize that channeling has been going on for eons, and it's bringing information from a higher source. That's it. That's really all you need to understand. The physical side of channeling is an interesting one I've been studying for a while. There's a lot of information out in the world around how channels' bodies have taken a hit for doing this kind of work. There are certain things that I've learned to do that make it easy for me to channel. That doesn't mean that I end up depleted sometimes or end up with headaches or just need to recover in some way, shape, or form. But the same is true when I lift. So I understand where recovery is necessary. And if you're a channel and you're learning about all of this now, just know you need certain practices in place to recover from channeling. It's a lot of work on the mind and the body and the spirit and sometimes the emotions. Grounding, hydration, nervous system regulation, figuring out how to stimulate your vagus nerve properly, humming, singing, dancing, all of those things, move your diaphragm and help vagal nerve stimulation. There's also points on your body where you can actually hit the vagus nerve and get it to light up and release. Hydration is phenomenal. I love to channel in the shower. It's my own place to channel for myself personally, usually around business, but water is phenomenal for channeling. In fact, that was the first way I learned how to shield, was putting a tube of water around me. It was amazing to have that visual, but heavy. Water is heavy. Grounding looks like going outside and putting your feet on the ground. I love to channel outside. When I'm doing my distance body clearings with my drum, I am sitting on the ground outside. It doesn't matter if it's snowing or raining or it's a beautiful sunshiny day. I'll find shade because I live in Colorado and the sun is intense. But grounding is necessary during and after and before and all night long. As much grounding as possible. Yes, I have grounding sheets because I know that they help my body with inflammation, with digestion, with overall happiness. Grounding is definitely a thing that someone as a channel needs to do. So if you're someone who's discovering, maybe I've channeled, you need to know that there's ethics behind this and responsibility behind it and nurturing of yourself behind it as well. Let's talk about the ethics and the responsibility behind this. When I channel for someone else, you already heard me, I ask permission. They are giving me explicit, direct permission to do that work for them. When I'm jumping on a call with them, I already have permission to do that work. When somebody reaches out to me and says, hey, can you check in on what's going on? Why do I have a cold right now? My very next question is, do I have permission to channel for you? Do I have permission to read your body? Do I have permission to talk to your guides? Do I have permission to talk to your ancestors? When you say channeling, it covers all those things. That's taking responsibility. That was something that Melissa Seaman was adamant. I understand working with her and moving forward as a channel for anyone else. There must be verbal, written permission. Everyone must consent. Doing it underground behind people's backs is stealing their opportunity to understand what was going wrong, and it will come back on you and it will come back on them. And it usually comes back in a bigger, uglier way. So get permission to do the work. That's working with integrity and being responsible for your actions. When my clients know that I'm channeling for them in one way or another, they feel safe. If I was doing it covertly, they might not be in a place to feel safe, which means that the messages coming through might be skewed because of that. Make sure that people feel safe, that you are channeling for them. Channels have shaped our world. Do you see that? Do you see how the Oracle of Delphi shaped wars and politics and leaders? Esther Hicks has shaped people's lives for the better, helping them understand who they are and why they are the way they are, it is a phenomenal tool, a phenomenal gift, and a phenomenal way of helping influence the world for better. They're cultural translators. They're bringing forward wisdom before our time, maybe even after our time. Channels are influencers, the original influencers. They sparked innovation. They helped formulate science. I would bank on the fact that Albert Einstein channeled some of his information, or his wife did. Channeling's not about predicting the future, though. It's about helping humanity align to a deeper truth. The science is there. It's caught up with what people have been doing for eons. Religion has been influenced by and was originally written from a channeled state. History has been written through channels and with channels. And it's all been with the goal of making an impact. I invite you to listen to any one of the number of podcasts that I mentioned on this episode. But I also invite you to go into your own internal guidance for a moment. See if maybe you are a channel without even realizing it. Those of us who are mothers tend to have mom instincts. We've experienced gut instincts one time or another in our life. Maybe you were given a vision at one point that saved your life. I had one of those a long time ago in my 20s relative to camping. I saw the tree fall and I had to move my tent from the spot. And the next day we woke up and the tree had fallen while we were sleeping. And it would have killed us in that tent if I would have put the tent there. That's a vision. You had sudden clarity out of nowhere. You were like, oh, yes, I'm not supposed to do that. Or yes, that's the thing I'm supposed to do. That's channeling. You had inspired creativity. All of a sudden you were like, I gotta go paint. And you painted something that wasn't directed. And you were like, wow, where did that come from? Channeling. For those of you who want to go deeper, every month I have a workshop where I invite you into this world to experience, to be a part of what my clients are experiencing. As you heard, September 17th, I recorded and presented a workshop on kinesiology, one of the steps that you have to take in order to hone your gift as a channel. And you heard about the October retreat. If you're listening to this before October 2nd through the 5th, you have an opportunity to join us, 2025. You have an opportunity to join us on that retreat to hone your gift as a channel. If that's you, check out the links in the show notes. Thanks for listening to this deep dive on channeling. Hey, I just want to take a moment to talk to the women listening right now who are high-performing, strong-willed, self-competitive, and maybe a little too good at pushing through pain. You know who you are. You've built a life by going all in, whether it's your career, your sport, or your business. But lately, your body's been trying to get your attention, and not in a gentle way. It's screaming at you. If that's you, I created something for you. It's a private podcast called The Secrets of Body Whispering. And it's all about learning how to hear the subtle whispers your body is sending before they turn into full-blown screams and symptoms. I'm sharing the exact tools I use with my private one-to-one clients and group coaching clients to help them heal faster, move through chronic issues, and reconnect to the part of them that knows how to perform without burning out. So if you're ignoring the screams and you're ready to actually listen to what your body needs through the whispers, click the link in the show notes to get access. Yay! You made it to the end of the episode. Good job. Now, go share this with your friends. Go like, subscribe, leave me a review. Let me know that you like what's happening here on the Gutsy Chick podcast. And if you're a female high performer with mysterious chronic health condition, go check out the Gutsy Chick Quiz so you can find out what might be holding you back from healing. And if you want more on what I do with my clients and my blog and any podcasts that I've been a guest on, go to bodywhisperhealing.com. Thanks for listening.